Watch out, here I come.
Welcome to the lunch hour with Mr. Credit.
Ooh, hot. Oh, yeah, that's hot. That is hot.
And today, it's Turnaround Tuesdays.
Let the games begin.
And today, we're teaching you how to point your financial life in the right direction.
Gee, I sure hope there's a happy ending. I love a happy ending.
And now, the lunch hour with Mr. Credit on ESPN Radio 1700.
Welcome, Mr. Credit Lunch Hour, your lunch hour. My name is Dan Osgood, sitting in for Mr. Credit. Sitting here with me today, our estate planning attorney, Jarod Cauzza. Welcome.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome to a Tuesday after a long weekend. How's the start to your week?
Everything's going well so far. So, yeah, short week. Got to look forward to football coming up this week, and but always plenty to do. So,
yeah, it is a big week as far as sports go, and the NFL has proved it kind of controls what goes on here in our country. So it's a big week indeed leading up to game one.
Yeah, it's amazing how much that market share has gone up for the NFL over the last 15 years.
Absolutely. And I heard as we were coming in, one of the owners just got fined $500,000 and suspended for 6 or 8 games for the season for
the Colts owner.
Yeah, for conduct detrimental to the league.
Yeah, that's going to be a big one.
Yes.
We talk about it with Sterling many times on this show and with the NBA. So, yeah, like you said, if it affects the pocketbook, it's likely going to affect you.
Well, $500,000, I guess, is the max they can fine.
Oh,
so
okay.
That's a big number to you and I.
Sure, certainly.
Someone that's worth $1 billion, yes, it's a big amount of money, but I don't think it impacts him quite as much, and probably he just takes that back out of the team somehow.
Yeah, well, you never know with that. But again, you get these people that make so much money, and then I heard it was the max, right? You said?
Right,
yeah,
that's the max the league
Hey,
allows.
what else are you going to do other than rewrite the charter or whatever?
Right. And I guess that the impact they're trying to have is no contact with the team at all for the 6 or 8 games that he was suspended.
Yeah, I think the biggest one for him, I was listening to the radio, said he could not use social media for 6 months. And then this guy is the guy that was tweeting about Peyton Manning and all kinds of stuff back when he was leaving the Colts. So maybe that'll hurt him more than the money.
Right. That was what I heard when I was coming in, someone commenting on the same line. Well, I hope everyone out there enjoyed the extra day off. Hopefully you had an extra day off. It was enjoyable lounging around, spending some time with the kids. It's rare. They're back to school. My kids started kindergarten this year.
Very nice.
So a week ago it was hand them off and walk away, and all new experience. Well, quick look at the markets. Last week, all-time highs again. Here we go again. We seems like every week or every other week we're having this conversation. As the market hits all-time highs, the media sensationalism grows more and more, and they do everything they can to make a big deal out of yes, it's a big deal. The market's going up. That's great. The reality is if you have a plan in place, a really defined plan, it really doesn't matter what the market's doing because you're going to be capitalizing if it's going up or down. And so this won't cause you to have a knee-jerk reaction and maybe react too late or too soon to something, which could be detrimental to what your goals are, your specific goals that you're trying to accomplish in your life. Well, let's get to a fun story here, Jarod.
All right.
For all you parents out there who have young children, video games, I remember the early days of Atari and maybe Nintendo.
Yep.
I don't remember what the second one was, but Atari was kind of first to the game, as I recall. I could be wrong.
Bunch in the 80s, but yeah, after the Nintendo came out, it pretty much took over.
Right, and I remember playing, and it is fantastic fun. As a kid, even as an adult, it's fun to do those types of things. There could be hope for your child who doesn't seem to have interests outside of sitting in front of his Xbox or his Wii or whatever the games are being played. It looks like there are some colleges offering scholarships for video games.
Yeah, you sent me this link, and I was kind of surprised. But in a way, not so much, because some of the games, especially the online games that this video was talking about, are really advanced in critical thinking, problem solving, and all these other traits that you want from hardworking citizens. So, I mean, there is some production out of it, other
Right.
than just sitting in front of the computer all day. But I think that it was very interesting anyway, the article, or the video rather, that you sent.
I know that the video, the kid that they were interviewing, he was only going to get a 25% scholarship to the school he was looking at, but 25% is a significant chunk of change.
That's what I was
for
thinking.
a hobby.
Exactly. Yeah, right. Exactly.
So-
For a hobby, certainly. Well, I mean, I'm curious how the schools would make their money back on this type of a thing. You know, with the athletes, those programs make a lot of money for the
Right.
schools, and they can use it to enhance their, buildings, libraries, and they can translate it that way. With the video games, I'm not so sure yet, but who's to say that that's not going to change later as
and,
well?
and I believe I've seen there are actual leagues.
Oh, really?
In some of the sports games where guys can win money if they work like through a Final Four type bracket
Wow.
and end up winning. There is prize money, so there's probably, if they're going to offer scholarships, there's definitely some way that they're going to be compensated,
You would
whether
think
it's
so.
through the companies that they're playing the game for their league or whatever it is they're trying to do.
I thought it'd be more in the developmental stage, but we'll see. Maybe there is some money in the games.
That's right. As a reminder, if you care to sit and watch Jarod and I, Jarod is sporting some new facial hair,
That's right.
looking sharp. So if you want to see the new look Jarod, see, you get married and everything changes.
Oh, that's good.
We are available streaming live, mrcredit.tv, if you care to look in and see us sitting here chatting and trying to make you smarter than everyone else. As we're on the subject of technology with this video game scholarships, over the weekend it looks like Apple's iCloud was hacked. It looks like the jury's still out as to exactly what happened, but a lot of celebrities' photos, which makes you kind of wonder why all these celebrities are taking nude pictures of themselves and storing
right.
them anywhere, but I guess any publicity is good publicity in this day and age.
I guess so.
Which it kind of makes me think a couple times, because Apple has always, all the Apple users have always touted and been a little bit arrogant about, Apple is bulletproof, hackers can't get it. But when you talk to an IT person, they say nobody is bulletproof. Just Apple hasn't been a big enough share of the market to even pay attention to, where now they're starting to get to that point where you're seeing more items where viruses are kind of infiltrating Apple products, and now this hack into their cloud system possibly.
Certainly. Yeah, and it's just on the cloud system. As attorneys, we hate it.
Yeah.
Hate the cloud system. Everyone likes it because it's easy. You don't have to bring a hard drive with you or anything like that. But because of this very issue, the fact that you can access it, and it's just a Apple dangling for hackers out there that they want to get.
Right.
And
And
Apple.
that was some of the people were questioning whether it wasn't because a few of the celebrities that they grabbed this data from were sounding kind of ignorant when it came to technology. So it was almost like they were putting themselves out as a easy target.
Sure. And the other thing with the cloud is it's an internet storage technology. And as we know, you put something on the internet, it's going to stay there. You could delete it later,
permanently.
but you know what? It's probably more likely they're not going to stay there. So, I mean, it could have been a situation where even these pictures were deleted, and they're still out there, though, because the cloud is internet. So,
Right.
again,
One of the actresses, Mary Elizabeth Winstead, which I have no idea who that is,
but
she acknowledged that these were legitimate photos of her, but she said they were deleted many years ago.
well,
Which is exactly what
we're
you're
talking about.
saying.
It's
That
on the
means
internet.
It's on the cloud. They went into the cloud and they got these supposedly deleted photos.
Yep.
And so you need to use extreme caution. The other view I'm taking of this is this possibly an inside job, because Apple's supposedly rumored to be releasing some iWallet, which is some deeper level of security. So is it a ploy?
You never know. It's possible.
Right.
There's
in
a lot
this
of
day and
theories
age,
there.
you hate to think a company would do something like this, but
I wouldn't say a company per se, maybe an employee who realizes that TMZ is going to throw a lot of money at him or someone like that. Not
Right.
TMZ necessarily, but that just comes to mind.
right, those are typically the companies that, or the sources that come up with this type of information.
Exactly.
So beware if you're using the cloud. Make sure it's something you don't mind if it's permanently out there and someone could use it in the future.
That's exactly right. I use
Because
it.
it's going to be there.
Yep.
And then while we're talking about security, another one that, and we've talked about this in the past, I came across a story on credit.com, 4 reasons not to use your debit card at a bar. One of the biggest ones is the scam possibilities. It's probably equal between a credit card and a debit card as far as getting scammed the same number of times.
Mm-hmm.
The reality is that's where the similarity ends, because with a debit card, you're giving someone free access to your bank account.
Yeah, it's a direct link.
So if you lose that card, expect your money's gone. Maybe ultimately you can get it back if you can prove that it was fraudulent, but what's going to happen in that time frame that it takes for that money to get put back? And if it goes for a long period of time and you don't realize it, it gets harder and harder and harder to get that money back. Where with a credit card, it's a very simple process. The most you're liable for ever is $50.
It's $50, yeah, something like that.
And that really doesn't impact your credit, because the credit card companies tend to fix the problem within 5 to 10 days.
As long as you report it, but yeah.
Right. Right. Again, you need to pay attention. So when you see your statements, the end solution is look at your credit or look at your statements almost on a daily basis, which that becomes pretty tedious.
Yeah.
But the reality is it a little bit of an inconvenience right now to prevent yourself from a huge amount of effort for a possibility that you could never get everything fully fixed?
No, you're right. Another way to limit yourself is, if you want, you can put your withdrawal limits with your bank on a daily basis with a debit card. It's another backup. That way, if this happens, you're only out whatever your limit is, $200, $300.
And I would imagine you would get an email or some type of notification saying you've hit your limit for the day, which would be a red flag to you saying,
Certainly.
hey, something's going on. The main 4 reasons they talk about: if you use your debit card, give it to a bartender, keep a tab open for a group of people, how long is that card sitting there?
Yeah,
where someone can
depends.
write the information down, take and use that card for other things. So, and once that money's gone, it potentially is gone for good. Second one, ATM fees.
Yeah. Anywhere you go, it's always a couple bucks, up to $5 if you're going to the casino.
Right. Oh yeah. I think in Vegas it could be even more.
Right?
Other things, skimmers. They tend to be able to get more. That's that magnetic strip reader.
Oh, okay, yeah. I've heard of this.
And that goes to, if you're going to take money out of a bank, you want to go to the bank itself. You don't want to use the easy one at 7-Eleven or the one in the dark parking lot. That it's easy for someone to get in there and put one of these skimmer type devices in. Just because, one, it's harder for you to detect if something isn't right in a dark or dimly lit. Same thing like in a bar or a restaurant that have the ATMs. It's challenging to see if there's something that could be amiss.
A foreign object.
Right. And another one, the last one, the 4th item, is no points. With a debit card, they've basically done away with any kind of bonus points.
Yeah.
And essentially, if you're using a debit card all the time, you should use a credit card because of the safety. Plus, there's so many great rewards plans out there that you're building up. The only difference would be you have to get into the mindset that this is just a cash advance and you need to pay that bill off every month rather than have it just come out of your account at that time.
Exactly.
That's the biggest challenge. Some people aren't able to do that. If you want to be more protected, you need to get in the mindset and get really disciplined that I'm using this, that money's gone. I'm not going to write the check until 30 days from now, but that money's gone.
It's spoken
not
for.
There. Correct. Just like if you write a check in your checkbook, but it hasn't cleared the bank yet, that money's not still there just because you see it on your statement.
No, exactly
and
right.
You need to understand. So that's basically it. The advice from the pros is just take a look at your statement. If you're not going to do it every day, every once in a while, just take a peek and make sure all the charges look legit. If not, because the sooner you can find out and report a problem, the easier it will be to fix. The longer it waits, the harder these issues are to resolve, and that could impact you in many ways for years to come. So that'll about do it for our first segment here. We do have Jarod Cauzza in studio today, so we are going to talk some estate planning.
All right.
Some questions and comments. There's been a few celebrity things that have happened over the last few weeks that we're going to get to. So stick around. We'll get to that and teach you why the 3rd step in the life plan is so important. You're listening to Your Lunch Hour, ESPN 1700. where we guarantee to make you smarter than everyone else.
If you would like free advice from Mr. Credit, just call or text 619-786-7853. That's 619-786-7853.
Welcome back to the Lunch Hour with Mr. Credit. And today, it's Turnaround Tuesday on ESPN Radio 1700.
Welcome back. It is your lunch hour. I'm Dan Osgood, sitting in for Mr. Credit. In studio today, as usual, we have Jarod Cauzza, our estate planning to the star, Mr. Credit himself.
Yep. We're going to talk about a couple stars here coming up.
Yes, we are. There's unfortunately been a few cases of some high-profile people, celebrities that have passed away as of late, and that always brings up the public scrutiny of what they were doing. We've seen a few cases over the last year or two.
Oh, yeah. It brings a lot of it in. Why? I don't know, per se. But, hey, we can always learn something.
Right.
You got to take the positive out of any negative.
Yeah,
so
if you
that's
want
what
to
we do.
take anything from the celebrities is learn from their mistakes, because they tend to make a lot of them.
Well, the fact is they make a lot, but when they mess up, we find out about it.
Right. That's why TMZ exists. In the case of Robin Williams, very sad story, suffering from severe depression, took his own life, left a few kids behind, and a few ex-wives,
Sure.
plus a current wife. And what we have seen in the past, like James Gandolfini,
James Gandolfini recently passed. Who else was there? Philip Seymour Hoffman.
and Paul Walker,
Yeah, Paul Walker. We've talked about all these.
just to name a few. There's been many others. We're not trying to compile a list of dead
no.
celebrities, but these are ones that all made pretty big headlines for their mistakes in planning. Gandolfini may be the largest of the mistakes.
Yeah, probably.
But one of the things that we're finding out with Robin Williams that is one of the biggest benefits, and we talk about this all the time, is the privacy aspect of creating a trust. He had a revocable trust in place. So most of the information out there seems to be purely speculation.
Exactly, because as we've stated on this show many times, the trust, there's no place you register a trust with the government. At least in California, you don't do that. It's a document that's between you, the trust creator, and your trustee, whoever that is. Oftentimes it's the same person, but it could be a friend, a confidant, a lawyer, anyone. And that's it. Those are the people that know about the trust instrument. So when you have a properly drafted trust and you don't have to go to the probate court to handle any succession issues or inheritance questions, you can take care of it behind closed doors.
Right.
So what we're finding with Mr. Williams' estate is people are guessing, or they may try to a source of a source kind of thing to figure it out that way, but they aren't going to the courthouse and getting an actual copy of the document,
Right,
which
they're
you
not.
would get if it was just a will.
They're trying to get info out of people that worked for him, but again, unless he's sitting there telling them all the intimate details of what he had done, they're guessing too. Maybe they overheard a conversation, so they're
Exactly.
trying to put pieces together, or telling someone who's going to, of course, sensationalize it to make news. I've seen reports that his net worth was between 30-ish million all the way to 130 million. So that's a pretty wide range.
Oh, definitely. And it's a benefit for all of us Joes and Janes out there. It says, look, if I don't want anyone else getting into my stuff, I'm going to draft a trust and not back it up on the cloud.
Right. Yeah, if it's on the cloud, there is a chance then you're at risk.
Exactly.
One of the things I've seen, some of the experts are saying maybe he didn't have a will, he didn't leave a will, which that may or may not be a bad thing.
Well, it's not uncommon. Typically, if you draft the revocable trust, you do want the companion will, and that we call a pour-over will, and that it's really general, and it doesn't get specific, and if that gets published in the public record, that's okay, because basically all you're saying is the trustee of my trust is my sole beneficiary. You don't itemize your assets. You just say everything I own, I give to the trust. That way now you may have to itemize what those assets are if you actually have to transfer them.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to get some financial information there. But the names of the beneficiaries, the terms, everything else, that stays in the trust, and that does not get lodged with the court.
Okay.
So it's true. Sometimes if you draft a trust, your attorney, or if you're doing it on your own, you don't draft a will. Well, that's not necessarily a good strategy, because if there are assets out there that are not trust assets, they would require to go to probate court. And again, if you don't have a will, those assets would be distributed according to the laws of intestate succession, which would be your next of kin. But, maybe you don't want your immediate family members to inherit everything.
Right.
Maybe you want,
typically that would be spouse first, right?
if you're married, well, it's community property. So half your community property goes to your spouse. They already own the other half, so they
Right.
get all of it. And then your separate property, which is anything you own in your own name that you had prior to your marriage or you received by gift or inheritance, whether or not you were married or not at the time, would get split half to your spouse and half to your children if you have any. If you don't have children, then it would be your parents, then siblings, and you go down the list.
Right. And this is rumors, but it looks like he did leave money in trust to his 3 children. The speculation is that it was spread out 3 different increments. First at age 21, second at age 25, third at age 30.
It's a very common scheme. I've done that personally on a number of trusts. We usually include language in there that says, the money may be made available for children or any beneficiary for that matter for medical and educational needs, especially if you want to go to college. Sometimes we add a clause that says, if the beneficiary is under 25, for example, and you have a scheme like this in place, the trust doesn't get split up until the child or the beneficiary turns 25. But if they're looking to buy their first house or go to school, go to college or something to that effect, we can give an advance, more or less, is how we would put it, for that purpose. But again, there are very narrow purposes.
That has to be monitored very closely
by
to
the
make
trustee.
sure they say they want to go to college and the money gets used for college.
Yeah, but basically the way we do it is that the trustee actually holds the keys to the bank, if you would, and they would actually pay the tuition bill directly to the school instead of paying it to the beneficiary with the proviso, yes, you intend to do this, but that way the trustee doesn't even, the beneficiary doesn't even touch the money.
And there could be cases where this could backfire, like maybe the kid does something not quite right, lawsuit pending,
that too, yeah.
all of a sudden this money dumps out of the trust in their name. Right around the time is a lawsuit, then that money could potentially disappear.
That's true, and that's where you run into issues in trust drafting. We talk about discretionary and mandatory distributions. A mandatory distribution would be one like we're talking about here. Joe turns 25, he gets 50% of the trust. Well, as long as he turns 25, the trust gets distributed to him under the terms, and that would mean his creditors, a lawsuit, that's fair game. Discretionary is you have the authority as the trustee to make that distribution at that a certain age, and then it wouldn't necessarily be.
So the kid could potentially sit with you and say, hey, I've got this potential or pending lawsuit. What can we do to protect this money?
Yeah, that would be something.
Keep it in trust, and then it's not accessible by the creditors?
Sometimes. Depends if the trust is drafted. The language has to be very particular in these situations. And again, we try to draft it as best we can when we're dealing with the parents in this situation, but you're talking about a beneficiary's own personal needs. And when we're crafting the trust, our relationship was with the parents. So the firm, we don't owe an obligation to them, but we just help to advise the parents in these situations. And sometimes we can do it. And then there are other options. But again, that would be addressed if and when the time arises later.
Well, not to mention, I mean, at 21, if his estate was worth $130 million and a third of it's going to each kid, that's a lot of money at age 21.
Oh, it's certainly
millions of dollars.
Well,
and what 21-year-old is ready to carry the burden of having millions of dollars deposited in their bank account?
Certainly, I'm sure there are some, but for the general public, I would not venture that to be a high figure.
Paris Hilton comes to mind.
Certainly. So exactly though, what you said, that's a very common scheme though, that 21, 25, 30 or even higher. I've seen them where the kids turn 50 and they start getting distributions. Right. So, I mean, you can do a lot.
Yeah, you don't want to give them the spoon, the silver spoon treatment.
Yeah.
And make them work and earn something to a point before they
Certainly.
That's good. Let's do this. Let's take a very quick break, and we'll keep talking here with Jarod. We are speaking with Jarod Cauzza, the estate planning 2-star star, Mr. Credit. He is with, I'm drawing a blank. It must be Tuesday after a long week. Neil Diamont downtown. If you want to get a hold of him for your free consultation, 619-238-1712. Once again, that's 619-238-1712. When we come back, we'll get into some of the interesting things people have done as they've passed away and what they've left behind. You're listening to Your Lunch Hour, ESPN 1700.
If you would like free advice from Mr. Credit, just call or text 619-786-7853. That's 619-786-7853.
Welcome back to the Lunch Hour with Mr. Credit. And today, it's Turnaround Tuesday on ESPN Radio 1700.
Welcome back. It is Your Lunch Hour. I'm Dan Osgood, sitting in for Mr. Credit. We have Jarod Cauzza here today, our estate planning attorney, covering all things that are estate planning related and any odd legal issue we ever come across. We can get some insight from someone who understands how the law works.
We try.
Yeah.
It is called the practice of law for that reason.
Correct. It's like a medical practice. They're practicing medicine, learning as they go.
And it always changes, especially with the law.
Yeah.
So you got to roll with it.
Yes. With medicine, I see it's always changing more. With law, at least you can refer to something that is specific. This is how it works.
That's true.
Always. Mm-hmm. So, and again, you can reach him 619-238-1712 for a free consultation for your estate planning needs, and his law firm, Neil Diamont, they can help you with most legal aspects.
Yeah, we just had our 50th anniversary. Matter of fact, I found out we are the 4th oldest law firm in San Diego County that's still since it's functioning. Yeah, we'll put it that way. So yeah, we do a lot of different things. So it's very fun.
Yes, great law firm downtown. I have a list. We always go through lists. It's estate planning, 16 things to do before you die, which sounds like a big bucket list. I looked this over. Other than putting together a list of important contacts and making sure all your beneficiary forms are properly filled out, the biggest takeaway I had from this was must-do number 14, initiate important estate plan documents. That's why we have Jarod here today. He is step 3 in the life plan, which is put it in writing. And the underlined, bolded point of this is procrastination is the biggest enemy to estate planning.
It's very true.
There's so many cases where people, I'm going to do it, they get the information, they start the process, but then they never follow through. And the reality is it is difficult to visualize yourself dying. And unfortunately, you have to account for that when you're drawing these documents up.
That's true at the same time, because you are coming up with a lot of contingencies. What happens if you pass who you want? What if they also pass at the same time? So there's a lot of what ifs that people don't normally think about that we have to address. But, it's just something that's part of our society now, like you said, and something we have to just accept and go forward with. And we're here to help you along the way. I hate to be characterized as someone who wants to force people to do something. So we're facilitators. We're not instigators.
Well, and educators, because you explain to people the hows and whys of doing something
Certainly.
one way versus another and let them decide what fits their situation best.
Certainly true. The only other thing I'll add on this list that I like, because I've dealt with it recently in some cases, is making a list of debts, or at least the larger ones that you're aware of, to make sure that those get accounted for. In addition, the larger creditors, if you're doing a probate case, you have to give them notice prior to the filing and everything else. So if you have a big auto loan, or even where I'm seeing a lot now is personal loans, private loans between citizens.
Okay.
We want to make sure those are accounted for, because that could be easily swept under the rug.
Right. And then after you think you're done settling an estate out, all of a sudden here comes this creditor that you didn't know existed. I've also seen many cases in people, even while they're alive, just totally forget they have things like an old insurance policy that they bought 30 years ago that they have in the safety deposit box,
Yep.
or tucked away in a folder that you don't even know the file cabinet hardly exists.
Yep.
And they get found well after the fact. Those are nice things to gather together as part of the data gathering.
I had an old case 2 or 3 years ago now where they had a life insurance policy. I think it was taken out in the 50s. And it was one of those ones you had to renew, but we didn't know. And we called the company, and of course it had been merged and split and everything else. And it turned out there was nothing there, but at the same time, like you said, it looked like an old policy someone forgot about, and then we found it in the post-death stage. So.
I saw a case where my dad served as the executor for a great aunt and an uncle. And after he had gone through and taken care of everything, he got a random phone call that he thought was just some scam about, oh, we've got some insurance proceeds for you. And he didn't know what they were talking about. And so he hung up a couple times, and they kept calling back. And so finally he listened to them. And it was tied to my aunt and uncle's estate. Wow. It was an old insurance policy that was still intact. And it wasn't a huge amount of money. It was just a couple $1,000s. But somehow they got word that the party had deceased. And actually, and this is rare, that they actually reached out and tried to find the solution.
Well, I think it was last week I called you trying to get a quote on some mutual funds. And what happened in that case was this person had died in 2000, did a probate administration, got it done in 2001, and then here we are in 2014. They get a call from the controller. Well, there was 30,000 mutual funds being held by the state, and I was in the process of drafting paperwork because there was a deadline to go to file it with the court last week, and this is $80,000-$90,000 worth of assets,
right?
14 years later,
wow,
that we're trying to get, and we're having to go through the court, but hopefully everything should go out fine. I don't see any problems. Right. But again, like you said,
surprise,
12 years later,
right.
14 years later.
Yes. Well, let's have some fun here when it comes to estate documents. Lauren Bacall, probably an older generation, not tons of people would know exactly who she was.
Yeah. If you heard her voice, you might know.
Yes.
She had a very distinct voice.
Absolutely. She died August 12th, and she had an estate worth more than $26 million. And one of the biggest things that stuck out and why this is out there is her documents provided for her beloved dog, Sophie. And according to papers filed in Manhattan, she set aside $10,000 for the care of her Papillon, Sophie.
It's not that uncommon, actually.
Right.
And we talked about it on the show. I mean, you want your pet to be taken care of, but at the same time, you don't want to place an added financial burden on someone, especially if they don't own pets already. They don't know. It's a good way to provide for it.
Right. Put that money aside. The likelihood of them getting cared for properly goes up, I would think.
Oh, yeah, definitely. It's a monetary incentive.
And it's one of these things where $10,000 seems more than reasonable, especially with an estate of $26 million.
Well, depends how old the dog is and everything else, I'm
right.
assuming. But yeah, I would say it's not outside the realm.
And that, of course, brought up many other stories. Hotel magnate Leona Helmsley, you remember that? Mm-hmm. She was dubbed the Queen of Mean. She left $12 million to her Maltese, Trouble, in 2007. Then there was a fashion designer, Alexander McQueen, left $82,000 of a $26 million estate to his trio of dogs.
Yep, that's a lot of coin.
For 3 dogs, depending on the type of dogs. That may, in this day and age, that was 2007, where today I could see it being more substantial.
Could be. But again, it's all relative, too. I mean, we always point these high numbers out, but it's all relative.
Right. Yeah, what level of care do you want to provide for these animals? Mm-hmm. The best one was Dusty Springfield, which maybe some people know who that is. Maybe, but I'm not sure the full range of our listeners. Some of the older ones will know. He was a British singer of Son of a Preacher Man, or she, I think it was a female, Dusty Springfield, Son of a Preacher Man fame. Her last will and testament included several provisions for her 13-year-old feline, Nicholas. The cat was only to be fed baby food imported from England, or imported to England from the United States, and was to live in a 7-foot indoor treehouse and be serenaded to sleep with the stereo system playing her hits, of course.
Oh, yeah, certainly.
And the biggest one, that cat had to be married to a female cat of Springfield's friend. My biggest question there is, what is the guarantee that something like that gets done if you're putting this in your legal documents?
I get that question a lot. And what it is you put in the trust, you're putting these obligations on the trustee to do these certain acts. You're creating a legal duty or imposing a legal duty on that trustee to carry out the intent of the trust creator, which in this case would be Miss Springfield. So it creates a legal duty. And a breach of fiduciary obligation is something that you can sue people for, and a breach of trust for a trustee as well. So you're creating a cause of action, if you would, that someone could bring against the trustee if they fail to perform these tasks. The question in this case I find interesting is who would have standing to bring that, because the cat certainly would not sue. But again, if there's an alternate beneficiary, someone to that effect, they certainly could at least put
maybe a little fight of someone who wanted to care for the cat or really liked the cat wanted it.
That possibly could be the case too. But I mean, what it does though is it creates a imposes legal duty on the individual, and then that person can be sued if they fail to carry out that duty. So that's kind of the only guarantee, if you want to use that term, to ensure that the acts get performed.
Okay. So depending on what the act is, probably creates the challenge as to how enforceable, how big of a guarantee you have that something like that would get followed through.
Certainly. And the other thing you can do is, you can require one person to do something and then have the money being administered by someone else, a bank or something else that says, look, you're not going to get any money unless you carry this out and show proof that it's being carried out. That way you're guaranteeing performance because you're putting someone else has the power of the purse, as we talked about earlier. That's one common way. The other thing too, real quick, is just pick the right person.
Right.
That's
someone
if you
trustworthy
really
that loves the animal.
Yeah, exactly. Pick the right person, then you won't have to worry about it.
I guess you would maybe have to get some mini cat headphones for the cat to listen to if you don't care for Dusty Springfield's music.
Yeah, I guess so.
Each night.
Yeah, I guess. There's just a stereo, so you don't have to necessarily be in the room, I suppose.
You give the cat in its own custom treehouse. You get a little mini surround system.
I'm sure it would work.
All right. Well, we all know the cost of education is going up, but do we know what the value of that education brings after the fact? Stick around. We'll let you know. We guarantee to make you smarter than everyone else. You're listening to Your Lunch Hour, Mr. Credit, ESPN 1700.
If you would like free advice from Mr. Credit, just call or text 619-786-7853. That's 619-786-7853.
Welcome back to the Lunch Hour with Mr. Credit. And today, it's Turnaround Tuesday on ESPN Radio 1700.
Welcome back. It is Your Lunch Hour. I'm Dan Osgood, sitting in for Mr. Credit. I have Jarod Cauzza in from Neil Dimott. He is a regular with me here. And the estate planning to the star, Mr. Credit himself. We all know college is increasing, and student debt is becoming a bigger hot topic.
Yeah, when you're rating congressional politics now with that one, so
yes.
It is a hot topic.
Yes. But the reality is there's some recent studies of the value of a college degree, and the reality is that has tripled since the 80s. So the value of having that college degree, and basically that means the college wage premium, which is the cost of college, which is tuition and fees, combined with the extra wages a college graduate can expect to earn over a 40-year period, compared with someone who graduates with only a high school diploma. It is now that premium that you can expect is approximately $272,692 in excess in comparison to someone who only graduated from high school.
High school.
Which that's that's a lot of money. That's a big difference, and that we're not even counting in the possibility that if you were to invest just that
or
difference
manage it,
and have it compound, the compounding effect on $270,000, that you're talking potentially millions of dollars of excess money you could have in retirement. So that shows huge value there. Although this is not the high. Just prior to the recession, it was actually $858,000.
Wow.
So it's a drop, but it's still a huge difference. Some of the information they go over while disclosing this, the biggest difference is having a college degree goes a lot further than just having a high school diploma when it comes to getting a job and your earning potential.
Certainly.
College graduates earn anywhere from 21 to 60% more money than people who only have a high school diploma. Which that's pretty substantial. A 4-year college graduate earns about on average, and this is nationwide,
sure.
It's not area specific, but they earn on average about $64,500 per year, which is much greater than the national average wages.
Definitely average, certainly.
Where the average out of high school, out of high school, but a 2-year degree holder earns approximately $50,000. So a little bit of college makes a big difference. And those with just a high school diploma earn about $41,000 per year, which that's kind of right in line what I think what the national averages are.
Yeah, I think so. I'm not up to speed on that, but that sounds right.
Right. So that alone, I think, is very substantial because, again, going back to the compounding, you're earning almost $25,000 more per year, which if you only have the high school diploma, you're making $40,000 a year, and you're able to get by or barely getting by or maybe struggling to get by. Think if you had an extra $25,000 per year, how much further that would go.
Oh, definitely.
And make life quite a bit easier for you. However, there are some small caveats to the college degree.
Certainly.
Not every college graduate wins because it looks like people graduating with engineering majors, and there's so many different types of engineers, mechanical, electrical, and many in between that I've left out. They can expect to see a 21% return on their college investment, while someone just studying education would only see a 9% return on their investment. It seems very low, but that really points to the fact that
teachers don't get paid anything.
In my opinion, teachers are really underpaid.
Oh yeah, no, I agree with that one.
For the impact they have on so many lives, they are really underpaid, especially when you compare them to someone who just, not to bash any engineer or anything, but they're sitting there just working on a computer designing some chip that sure, it simplifies people's lives, but I think a teacher has more impact than that.
I think you're right, too.
Just my opinion.
But you're right. There is a lot to be said about what you're studying and what you're using the degree for, like you said.
Yes, and that range is all over. If you studied and specialized and came out with a degree focusing on medicine, I'm sure that's a much higher premium.
Yeah.
If you're going to go be a brain surgeon or something along those lines, you're going to make quite a bit more money.
Probably cost more money, too, to obtain the degree, but if you get a higher rate of return on your investment, you can pay that off faster.
Absolutely. And that is, it takes much less time now coming out with a degree, earning the higher wages, the ability to repay the cost of that education is much shorter than if you don't.
Do it the other way, yeah.
And while we're talking about education, and essentially that's all of our children, something I'm looking forward to in another 12 or 13 years. Jarod, I don't know if you guys are planning on having kids, but something you
we are, just haven't, not yet.
Not yet. So this is something that you'll really love this.
Oh, I will.
Recent study, the cost today to raise a child, before you saw this, any guess?
I would not have even had a guess, no.
Yeah, I don't know either. And this study cuts out the cost of education for college.
Yeah, it's just basically a child born in 2013 will cost a middle-income American family average of $245,000 until they reach the age of 18. So that's
and that's counting food, housing, childcare, and education being through high school. Higher education was not included.
I wonder if I'm assuming it's the public education system as well.
Right. So I guess that would be all costs associated with going to school. But so $250,000.
The one benefit, though, if you read the end, is expenses per child decrease as the family has more children. The report found that as families with 3 or more children spend 22% less than families with just 2 children.
So I need to run out and have one more.
Well, that's, if you're
I don't think I can convince my wife that that's a good sales pitch.
22%, because they share bedrooms, clothes, toys, etc.
Right.
So again, that's the
luckily, and we can get into other ways to save money. That is, we have some great friends who have a couple boys that are a little bit older than ours, and they give us enormous bags full of clothes. So we literally have had to buy minimal clothes for my son.
and that's a lot of saving.
Oh, we know, because I have a daughter that unfortunately we don't know anyone with a daughter that's just a little bit older, so we've had to buy almost all of her clothes, and it's amazing the amount of money you're saving.
You're right.
Through that.
I was at a party this weekend with one of my good friends. He has 2 daughters and one more on the way, and they don't know if it's going to be a boy or a girl. And he secretly says, I kind of hope it's a girl. We won't have to use all the same clothes. We already got everything.
Yep. It looked a little funny making my daughter go to school every day in jeans and a football jersey or something along those lines.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. But, well, that just about does it for us today. Jarod, thank you again as always.
Oh, thank you.
Great information helping me pass along the motto of making everyone smarter than everyone else.
Hey, we try.
And once again, that is Jarod Cauzza with Neil Dimott downtown. Outstanding estate planning attorney. He can help you. Give him a call for your free consultation. 619-238-1712. You've been listening to Mr. Credit Lunch Hour, your lunch hour, where we guarantee to make you smarter than everyone else. We'll talk to you again next week. Enjoy the day.
If you would like to contact Mr. Credit or access any free offers mentioned on the show, just go to mrcredit.org. That's mrcredit.org.